residence that you eventually converted to an investment property. But now, 10 years, 15, 20, 3, 5, however many years later, it's appreciated in value. And if you were to sell it, you're going to have to pay a lot in capital gains tax. Usually there's federal tax, state tax, depreciation, recapture, healthcare contribution, all in all. Usually paying capital gains tax would take anywhere between the high 20s to the low 40s in taxes on the gain portion. Well, the 1031 exchange is the Internal Revenue Code that allows you to sell and buy investment property. And as long as you follow certain rules and guidelines, which I will mention, you'll be in a position to absolutely pay zero in capital gains tax. Quite honestly, this is the greatest wealth building tool that is out there. There aren't many things where you can make all kinds of money. And then when you look to sell it, you don't have to pay taxes on it as long as you follow certain criteria. So number one, I just want everyone to understand there are three pieces of real property that do not qualify for a 1031 exchange: the primary residence, the second home, and the flipper. So here's what those three mean. The flipper is a property that you buy, look to fix, and then sell shortly afterwards. That's considered inventory and doesn't qualify. Ideally, you operate it as investment property, and they haven't really defined the time frame, but it's usually 1 to 2 years, then sell it. And if there's gains, you can do a 1031 exchange. Now, the second home, sadly, does not qualify for anything except for paying taxes, but it's an easy way to be converted into investment property. All you have to do is rent it out 14 days out of the year and not use it for personal use more than 14 days out of the year. And then it will magically, after doing that for 2 years, qualify as investment property. So when you look to sell that property, you can do a 1031 exchange. And finally, there is the primary residence. Well, in the United States, if you've lived in the property 2 out of the last 5 years, you do have the luxury of qualifying for the primary residence exclusion. And that means that if you've lived in that time frame, 250,000 of your gain tax-free. Take the money, do whatever you want with it if you're single, and $500,000 of the gain is tax-free if you're married. Those are the three pieces of property that don't qualify. There are easy ways to convert it and make it qualify, like rent the flipper property for a year or two, like convert the vacation property to investment property. And when your gain exceeds the 250, 500, you could convert it to a rental, rent it for 1 to 2 years, then sell it, still qualify for the 250, 500, and 1031 exchange everything else. So what does that leave us with? That leaves us with a lot of properties: bare land, vineyard land, condo rental, townhouse rental, single family home rental, duplex, triplex, 4-unit, 10-unit, 100-unit, office building, retail, shopping mall, medical, like hospitals, hotels. They all qualify for 1031 exchanges. So it's a huge code that's out there for investment property that can help you build wealth within your real estate portfolio. So the way it would normally work is you bought the property years ago, and for whatever reason, it's time to sell that property and it's investment property, and you want to do a 1031 exchange to preserve that equity. You put the property on the market. Coco could help you with that. And eventually you accept an offer, open up escrow, and then a 1031 exchange account needs to be put in place. That's what we do. We're known as a qualified intermediary. You need a third-party company that will create legal documents that will allow us to act as the seller. Here's the thing about the 1031 exchange. You can't touch the money. If you touch the money, you're going to pay capital gains tax. That is why we create a 1031 exchange account, assign into the rights of the contract, become the seller, and then at the close of escrow, instead of the money going into your account as the seller, it goes into the 1031 exchange account, and then the clock starts ticking. You will have 45 calendar days to identify exactly what you're going to buy. And from day 45, you'll have an additional 135 days to close on what you identify. Now, as long as you use all of the money and buy of equal or greater value to what you sell, you'll be in a position to pay zero in capital gains tax. Now, most people think, and this is the biggest misconception when it comes to 1031 exchanges, is that people do a 1031 exchange to not pay the taxes. This is incorrect. If you don't want to pay taxes, there is a very simple strategy. Do not sell the real estate. If you do not sell, you do not pay taxes. Here are the reasons why people do 1031 exchanges. Number one, and this is in no particular order, You're tired of being a landlord. I know this from personal experience. The tenants, the trash, the toilets, the termites, the taxes, all the terrible T's at some point of owning the real estate can just be a little too much and you can't handle it. And you want to sell it because you no longer want to actively own the real estate. You don't want to pay taxes. So the 1031 exchange will be the solution to go out of actively managing real estate to go into something passive. And you can do that in a 1031 exchange because you don't have to buy the same type of property that was sold. You can go from residential to commercial, commercial to residential, multiple properties in the same state, out of state, as long as it's within the United States, you will be in that position to pay zero in capital gains tax. Sometimes people just exhaust their depreciation schedule. Now, depreciation is an added benefit when you own investment property because each year when you're claiming income, you're going to be paying income tax on the income that you receive. The depreciation will act as a corresponding deduction. So you can shelter some of that income, but it runs out. So for residential property, after 27 and a half years, there is no more depreciation. So sometimes people have a property for so many years, there's no more depreciation. Maybe they're tired of being a landlord, maybe a variety of different reasons, and they sell the asset. They don't want to pay the piper because we already talked about this. High 20s to low 40s is a lot to lose on all of that equity. So they do a 1031 exchange. And I've given these presentations for decades, and many times people say, look, I don't really need the money. I don't want the headache anymore. But what I really like to do is buy something that I'm going to live in. How do we make that happen? And here's the beauty of a 1031 exchange. And this is why I always talk with clientele and find out, okay, what don't you like? What do you want to get into? And when people say something like that, this is what you can do in a 1031 exchange, and this is the power. Let's say I own an investment property and a primary residence, and I no longer want the investment property, and maybe I'm an empty nester, so the primary residence might be too big as well. I could sell my investment property, I could do a 1031 exchange, and I could buy the ultimate dream home. For me, that would be in Hawaii. So I could buy something in Maui. My wife and I would love to move out there, and we would buy that investment property and maybe Airbnb it for the first year or two and then move into the property. Then we would sell our primary residence and be able to collect the $500,000 exclusion money and move into the primary residence that is now a primary residence that was prior to an investment property. So sometimes it's just a matter of selling the investment property, using it as investment property, and eventually converting it to a full-time primary residence or vacation home, and at the same time unloading the primary residence. The 1031 exchange is the greatest wealth building tool that exists out there because of the great benefits that it does provide in terms of not having to lose any of that equity and going into a superior piece of investment property. To me, it's all about strategic planning. This is not something where you sell the property and then tell Coco right before the close of escrow, I want to do an exchange. I have no idea what I'm going to buy, but let's figure it out. You don't figure it out in a month and a half. You know in advance why you don't like it. At that point, you should start looking for properties that you do like, or at least get an idea of where you want to put the money so you can see what type of inventory is available, find out what your plan A would be, plan B, plan C, because you always want to go into this knowing that the time constraints are very quick and there's no extensions on this unless something disastrous happens, and we don't want that to happen. And you need to make this all happen in a short window, but if you do, the benefits are enormous. So again, from the start, the 1031 exchange is the code out there that allows you to sell and buy investment property. And as long as you follow the rules and guidelines, you'll be in a position to pay absolutely zero in capital gains tax. Here's an alarming statistic, and I'll just give it to you because I live in Northern California. In the immediate Bay Area, let's just say San Francisco County, Santa Clara County, and Alameda County as examples. We can go through all of them if you want, but we don't have time for that. San Francisco County, over 43% of the residential properties qualify for a 1031 exchange. All commercial property does. Alameda County, over 39% qualifies. Santa Clara County, over 37% qualifies. This means that there are a ton of properties out there that qualify, and a lot of people out there don't know how to work this code to their advantage. Like I said, it's a wealth building tool that can help you take the pain out of the gain. And if you truly know how to utilize it, you can be a phenomenal investor in real estate or professional in real estate.
Wow. That's a lot of information you just given. I don't know whether everybody's catching up with you. You speak very fast. I thought I speak very fast. You speak even faster than I do. So I have a few things to clarify, James. So number one, you mentioned about the vacation home is not qualified, but if you can rent it for 14 days out of a year, then that can qualify for 1031. Is that right?
Yes, for 2 consecutive years, you need to rent it for a minimum of 14 days. You can rent it out a lot longer, and most people want more income and not use it for personal use more than 14 days. Once you hit that threshold, the property will qualify as investment property and you can do a 1031 exchange. If you don't do that and you sell it, you're just paying taxes. There is no loophole.
Oh, wait, I get a little confused. So you're going to for the vacation home, you're going to rent it for 14 days, at least the 14 days for 2 consecutive years. At the same time, you cannot live there for more than 14 days for personal use.
Correct.
So that means you have to leave it really vacant.
Well, ideally
You're
you
not
rent it
living
out
there.
more than 14 days, to be
Mhm.
honest, because you want more income. But sometimes people just want to know the minimum requirements because they don't really want to rent it, but they want to follow the rules. So yeah, Coco, to be safe, you'd be leaving it vacant for the majority of the year if you're one of those people. You could work on the property, and being there when you work on the property doesn't count as one of the days, but you just really want to know the guidelines and fit within those guidelines, and definitely have the short-term lease agreements for the 14 days where the property is rented. And this is not something that you provide to the IRS. Yes, after 2 years, it becomes an investment property if you follow that criteria, Eric. This is not something you want to provide to the IRS. This is something you want to have available only if you are audited. Everything we talk about today are the rules and guidelines, but you never want to alert the IRS for any reason, for anything, unless they request something from you.
Right. You don't want to ask for an audit.
No, you don't want to
Yeah.
ask for an audit.
Exactly. So I guess I was confused because you're saying, okay, 14 days for rental for 2 consecutive years. That's great. But then the second layer is you cannot occupy that as a primary home for more than 14 days.
Right. And a lot of people don't like that. Um, so, I mean, when we really look at second homes, let's say I bought the Tahoe property in 1990, and maybe now I'm turning 70 years old and I just don't want to make the drive out there and I don't go there and it's just sitting there. For that person, it's pretty easy not to go up there 2 weeks out of the year. But then on the other side of the coin, for the person that wants to just buy that in a 1031 exchange and really utilize it, they'll have to be patient for the first 2 years and not use it more than 14 days to fit within the guidelines.
Got it. Got it. Actually, it's for vacation home, as long as you can do like Airbnb, it's quite easy because we invest in Hawaii and then sometimes we just save like a week or so for ourselves to use, right? So that I can go there and then block the time out. And then so that's really, it's like our vacation home, but it's really not a vacation home because it's being Airbnb'd out during the meantime. So those things, those properties actually qualify for 1031, which is great. Then the second point I got from your fast talking was like the private home can be really converted to rental, and rental can also be converted to primary. So by saying that, let me just recap so that make sure everybody gets this. So when you have a primary home, when you sell the home, especially in the Bay Area, the price has gone up so much higher than before. So $500,000 for a married couple is no longer like satisfying the capital gain. I mean, it's capital gain exemption, but it's no longer they're making more than much more than 500,000. So they still have to pay taxes. So there's a way to do that. You can actually convert that into rental for at least a year. So whatever you're making, that $500,000 can be capital gain exemption. But then beyond the 500,000, you can do a 1031 exchange.
Coco, this happens so often in the Bay Area, whether they're selling in any of the counties, and if they've owned it for a long time, especially if they're single, if you can only protect 250,000 of the gain, you're going to have to realize a lot of taxes on the. If your gain's $1 million, you're going to have to pay taxes on 750,000 if you're single, or 500,000 if you're married. So what a lot of my clients do is they purposely move out of their primary residence and rent it for 1 or 2 years, and then they sell it And since they still lived in it 2 out of the last 5, they pocket the 250 or 500,000 and 1031 exchange the rest. This is a very popular, ingenious strategy that is used by many, many of our clients. I see Eric sent a question out here, and I wanted to ask Eric the question. You can answer it in the chat. I have you up here, Eric. It says, I bought all my investment properties in my father's name and then he passed, but I still have my primary residence to sell in the next 5 years. So in real estate, a true benefit of passing is a step up in basis. And the motto for 1031 exchange is buy till you die. Because a lot of people say, well, eventually I'm going to have to pay the taxes. That's really not the case, because what a lot of our investors do is they will sell their investment property when it's time, and you'll know when it's time. And rather than paying the taxes, they'll get other better investment properties wherever. But when you pass away, whatever your basis is, and the way they figure this all out is, let's say I bought the property for 100,000, and today it's worth 1 million. If I sell it in cash out, I'm paying taxes on 900,000. If I sell it in exchange and buy another property for 1 million, and that property goes up to $1.5 million, my gain's not 500,000, it's $1.4 million. So the prior gain follows me. That basis will follow me. And the basis can change with depreciation and improvements, but we're not talking about that right now. But here is the cool thing about death, if you can kind of look at it that way. It's kind of tough when you pass, but the $100,000 basis, the original purchase price, is stepped up to the current value of when I pass. So if I pass and the property is worth 1.5 million, the beneficiary to the property can then sell it. And if they sell it for 1.5 million, there is no gain. If they sell it for 1.8 million, the gain's only 300,000. More often than not, especially in the state of California, because of Prop 19, people sell the property when they inherit it, and they don't have to pay capital gains tax, and they do whatever they want with the money. And so that's why, Eric, when you brought it up that when your father passed, it may have been in his name, but for tax purposes, I'm not quite sure whose property it was. You'll have to figure that out with your tax advisor, because if it's only in his name and he's not operating it, there could be an argument that it's truly already yours at that point. But if it is dad's and he passed and you get the step up, I'd recommend selling those properties and cashing out. You still have your primary residence. As long as you're in there, you still have the protection of the 250 or 500. Then I say, oh no, say that again. I sold all the property because they had appreciated and were a headache. I'm assuming you got the step up on those properties. I'm hoping you did. And didn't have to realize taxes, but I'm not sure, because you said it was just in his name. And sometimes putting it in the name is not enough.
So what if they don't sell? If they inherit the property, the property
Well, because of Prop 19, the property. So what happens when you pass? Let's say I bought it for $100,000 and it's worth $1 million. If I were to sell again, that's a $900,000 gain. If I die, the basis goes up to $1 million, and if my beneficiaries sell, then they sell it for $1 million. They pay no taxes. But if they keep it, like you were saying, Coco, then they're not paying taxes because they haven't sold. But because of Prop 19, my property taxes that I was paying when I was alive was on 100,000. Prop 19 reassesses it to the current value, and now instead of paying it on 100,000, they would pay it on the $1 million. And most people aren't ready for that surprise, and that's why it's another reason why most people sell the properties. And the only way you can protect that property tax base is if it was the primary residence and you move into it, and most people aren't going to be doing that. I think somebody raised their hand. Hung Tao,
Yeah.
did you have a
Can
you hear me?
question? Yes.
Yeah. So if I have commercial property and if my parents have commercial property and it's valued like $10 million, the best route you're saying is to sell this property and divvy up all the proceeds to individual siblings and just walk away from it?
No, I'm saying that if your parents passed away and there was a step up in basis, I'm hoping that there's a vehicle in place that will designate who gets what and what gets who. Now, there's a couple of ways to approach this. Number one, yes, if there's going to be a big fight, if you believe that there might be, because there's multiple owners that will inherit that won't agree. Maybe it's best for your parents to sell the commercial property and buy a property for each sibling wherever they want it. This, of course, is if your parents aren't looking for that income that they're getting on the commercial property. There's all kinds of variables that could come into answering that question. So it really depends on what's going on, but it's always best to inherit it upon passing.
So
most
not
of the time.
so not before that,
I guess
Well,
you
not
can.
before they're passing.
Well, if they sell it before passing, they'd have to pay capital gains tax, and your inheritance would no longer be 100%. It would be 100% minus the taxes, which could be a lot. If they keep it and pass away and you sell it at that point, then there is no loss because the step up in basis. If they sell it now, then they should probably exchange if they have a large gain, and then they have the option to do what they want. They might buy different properties. They might buy a property for each kid. It's where, as a family, you would probably decide what's the best route. But I'd always recommend that the estate planning vehicle is in place that is prepared for them for their passing so that you could avoid probate.
Right.
So I think James trying to say that before they pass, it's probably better to do exchange to avoid paying for the capital gain taxes. However, upon the passing, if you sell it, then there's no capital gain. Most likely there's not much capital gain taxes involved because of step-up basis. That's what the point, yeah.
Can you define the word step-up basis?
So the basis is the original purchase price, right?
Oh, yes.
And then there is the current value of the property. I'm assuming they bought the commercial property years ago. And the step up means the basis is stepped up to current value.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So whatever value you mentioned, that value, it may not be the acquisition cost. So upon passing, the value, the basis will be stepped up to the current
right.
market.
So if they bought it for $1 million and today it's worth 10 million, if they sell it now, you lose 3 million or more. And if they pass, then that million goes to 10 million. You guys sell, you preserve all 10 million, not just 7.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So so that's a very good point. So earlier we mentioned about before you sell the home, you can somewhat convert your primary to rental, so you can get the benefits of both the capital gain exemption from primary home plus the delayed taxes, right? So for the 1031 exchange. So after you acquire the property, you can actually quote unquote convert your rental to primary after a year or so, right? So then you can basically get this delayed paying for capital gain taxes by doing the 1031 exchange. At the same time, you can actually convert that into a primary home. Then later on, you also have this capital gain exemption benefit as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So James, I have one more question for that scenario. So if you convert your investment property into primary after the exchange, so whatever taxes you didn't pay because it was delayed, right? It was postponed. Whatever tax you didn't pay, did you have to pay at the time when you convert that into your primary home?
No, you only pay when you sell. And when you convert it to a primary residence in a 1031 exchange or any investment property that's converted to a primary, sadly, the 250,500 will be prorated. So if I rented it for 1 year and lived in it for 4, so I owned it a total of 5 years, then 80% of the time I owned it, it was a primary. I will be able to protect my exclusion amount at a prorated 80 percentile. So you won't be able to protect 100% of it, but you'll be able to protect a percentage based on the number of years that you reside in it. Really quickly, Rose, there is no time frame of when you have to sell after the step up occurs, but the new value of the property when you calculate gains will be that step up number. So if it was stepped up to $1 million and 20 years later you decided to sell it at 2 million, your gain is $1 million instead of 1.9 million. So there is no time frame, but I think the push to sell it, at least in the state of California, is Prop 19 because the property tax reassessment. And I also think one of the other pushes, unless you're the sole beneficiaries, then you're going to own the asset with probably a sibling. And a lot of the time that just does not work out well. I've got some hands raised here from Cindy and Lucy. Cindy, I think you raised your hand first, so go ahead.
All right, Cindy's my wife. This is Chris.
Oh,
You mentioned
Chris.
you mentioned one reason people do the exchange is because they don't want to manage a property anymore. So, what are some examples of passive income investments that qualify?
This is a strategy that probably 20 to 25% of our clientele utilize. Commercial property would be that strategy, and there are different types of assets that you can get into. Now, there are triple net properties, and the idea behind the triple net property is you're buying into, let's just say, a Burger King. And now you're not buying the business, you're buying the building that the tenant, which is Burger King, is leasing. And it's a triple net lease, meaning they pay the taxes, the insurance, the improvements to the property if the building needs improvements. And basically, that property that you're buying is only as good as the lease. So if you're going to do a triple net property, you want to make sure that the Burger King's lease is awesome and a corporate guarantee. Now, that is one strategy. The more popular strategy is the Delaware Statutory Trust. And that is where you would own a fractional interest in a large commercial institutional asset. So let's say I sold a single family home, did a 1031 exchange, it went for $1 million, and now I'm buying a 1% interest in a $100 million apartment, 400 unit building in Charleston, South Carolina that was just completed in 2023. And I will have no responsibilities whatsoever and probably get a cash on cash return of somewhere between 4 and 5.5% and appreciation at the end of the cycle that will give me a return of probably somewhere between 12 to 16%. These are very popular because you're going into an asset that is very conservative. You will have no response. As a matter of fact, if you go out there, they'll probably arrest you if you try to work on the property or talk to tenants saying you own a percentage of it. Everything will be done for you. This is very popular for people that are tired of dealing with being a landlord and everything that it takes, or tired of dealing with properties that need constant repairs. So it's a very popular strategy, Chris. And you could even take it to a different level. A lot of people get into the DST investment because certain DSTs, and you know this in advance when you're going into one, will eventually be absorbed by a REIT, and it's uprooted into a REIT. REITs don't qualify because they're securities, and basically a REIT is a real estate investment trust, which is comprised of multiple commercial institutional assets. So you could technically sell your single family home that's a rental, do a 1031 exchange, buy into the Delaware Statutory Trust, whatever it is, multifamily, industrial, office, self-storage, there's all kinds of options. And that is on a schedule to be absorbed by the REIT. So you're eventually going to get into a REIT and the benefits of having that mixed portfolio with dividend returns that you get. Now, the side note on getting into the UPREIT is that you can no longer sell it and do an exchange. You are in that REIT. You will get the step up when you die, but the REIT is the final investment unless you're looking to cash out and pay capital gains tax. But it is very popular because there's a lot of benefits to that as well. So that's a few examples, Chris, to passive investment property, but those are the most popular. Does that
right? Just to add to that note, Chris, a lot of people actually prefer. I mean, DST is a great option. I myself prefer to see properties. So what I did is instead of investing, I'm trying to find a good investment opportunity like Airbnb, and then try to find very good property manager. So this is what I'm doing. So investing in Hawaii and then have the property manager really take care of the whole thing. So because the long-term and short-term rentals are very different. So for the long-term rentals, you can have a lot more headache in a way. Short-term rentals, as long as you have, the key thing is you have a very good property manager. So if you have good property manager, it actually is very successful business. So to me, that's like a business. For me,
and that's another passive type of investment property. The key with that is having the right property manager
yes.
In place. That I think everybody who's owned investment property and has property management would agree with that. If you have good property management, you're in a good situation. And the numbers really work well for the right Airbnb property, not just in Hawaii. I've seen this very successful throughout the country. So there's a lot of opportunities in that as well.
Right. So we're actually investigating areas like Tennessee. You know, of course, now Tennessee has that tornado or something right now. So
Arizona is very popular.
Yeah, exactly. So we're investigating all those areas because after all, with long-term rentals, you have different type of headache. But with short-term rentals, if your property manager manages well, a lot of things are streamlined. It's actually can be very passive from that perspective. Yeah. I think Lucy also raised a hand.
Okay. Actually, my name is Queen. Lucy is my wife. I use her account. Sorry.
No problem, Queen. Yeah.
I have a question. We have a primary home. We moved out. We bought another house. The original house now rent. It's about 10 years. We lived there 10 years. Now, if in the future, let's say in 10 years or 15 years, we sell in the house. Here, there's two options. If we just sell it after rent and how to pay the tax. The second question is,
when did you move out of that property?
10 years ago.
10 years ago?
10 years ago. Well, 12 years ago.
Well, more than 3 years ago. So you no longer qualify for the 250,500 on that. That now, I'm assuming, is a rental property, and you can do a 1031 exchange on it. Or if you sell it, you would be paying the capital gain tax, but the primary residence component is long gone.
Okay.
Unless they move back, unless you move back, right?
Leave there 5 years, then sell. Can we?
But if you move back into it, the rental years will work against you, and you've rented it for 10 years. It'll be prorated where you do not protect that much.
Okay, thank you.
So, James, regarding that, so if within the past 5 years they live there for at least 2 years, but rented for 3 years, for example, is that also going to be prorated or no?
No, it will not. It will not. But you don't want to rent it for 3 years. So 2 years and 11 months, anything under that.
No, that's my point. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
In
so
that
they will
scenario,
not. No, they do not prorate it that way. So that's the beauty. So if I convert my primary to investment, I can sell it within the next 3 years and still get the entire 500,000.
But if it's beyond the 3 years, then you have to move back.
Done.
When you have to
if you move back in, you will get it prorated. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So it's really critical that you plan in advance and execute. I have many clients that their 3-year time frame is coming up in June and July. They have to close.
Oh, they have to do it now because right now the market.
Yeah, they have to do it now because their realtor has told them to call me, and I find out the information. I go, when did you move out? June 10th. Okay, well, you need to sell and close before June 10th, or else it doesn't kill the deal, but I think losing the opportunity to keep 500,000 is a huge negative.
So
okay.
yeah.
Okay, I have more questions. Now, how can we calculate the base?
How can you what? How can you what?
The base, the cost.
The cost base. How can you keep the cost base?
Yes, if in the future we sell in the house.
You can't.
Originally, we bought all the time we moved out, rent out the market value.
The only thing you can do is 1031 exchange into another property or pay taxes on the gain portion. Unfortunately, your basis will change when you die. So you don't want that to happen. And
not before you die.
Yeah, I mean, you could exchange it into a property that you eventually move into, but sadly, the opportunity for you to take advantage of the exclusion expired, like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, because you moved out 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the opportunity.
That's okay. At least the market appreciated. So thinking
right.
Yeah, you made good money. This is not a complaint. It's just that strategy doesn't qualify right now.
It's a good headache. Yeah.
Coco, we only have till 6:45, correct?
That's right. Well, we have it until 6:45.
I wanted to bring up two things that I mentioned so that everybody on the panel understands this. I think we could all agree, anybody who's done a 1031 exchange, that the 45-day window is the most challenging part of a 1031 exchange. And you mentioned this in the beginning, Coco, and I wanted to make sure that I touched it. The reverse exchange is very popular, especially in areas with limited inventory when you're looking to do a 1031 exchange. And the reverse exchange is where you buy the replacement property first and sell the relinquished property second. When people hear this, they wonder, why doesn't everybody do this? I could sell my property easily. It's finding the one in 45 days that's the challenge. Now, here is the reason why a lot of people do not do the reverse exchange. If I'm selling for $1 million, my target price is $1 million or greater to pay no tax. If I'm going to buy first and I have not sold my relinquished property, where am I going to get the money to buy a property for $1 million? Now, some people have the cash, and if they have the cash, it is awesome, because what happens is you go into contract, you let me know, and then we assign into the rights of the contract. We set up an LLC that will go on title at the close, and then you have 180 days to sell your relinquished property, and the cash from the relinquished property will go back into your pocket. Perfect. A fully deferred reverse exchange. If you don't have the cash, it gets a little bit more challenging. Say like you only have the down payment and you have to get a loan. Well, if you're buying residential property, conventional lenders typically do not lend to an LLC, so you probably have to go private money. So it becomes more costly to do a reverse exchange. It's still feasible, but more costly. Now, if you can't come up with the down payment and there isn't a way where financing will work, the reverse exchange is not an option. But for the right investor, for the right scenario, reverse exchange could be perfect. And finally, I wanted to mention something that I think doesn't get mentioned enough. Many people call me up and say, James, I'm selling for $1 million. I know I got to buy for $1 million to pay no tax. I know if I buy for 800,000, I'll pay tax only on the difference, but I don't want to pay any taxes. Here's my idea, and can I do it? The property I want to buy is for $800,000, but I want to build an ADU on the property, and I want to fix the roof and remodel a part of the house. Can I use the exchange money to fix the property? Number one, improvements don't qualify as like-kind property. That's what they call it, as like-kind property, because it's not real property. But there is a way around this. Like the reverse exchange, there is an improvement exchange where we, the exchange company, will set up an LLC that will go on title at the close instead of the client. While we are on title, within the 45-day window, the client will identify what they want to have done. And the general contractor and subcontractors will invoice us directly. And as long as those improvements are completed by day 180, improvements can be included within the 1031 exchange. That includes building a house from scratch, which is hard in a lot of areas. I understand that, or an ADU or improvements.
Okay. Actually, I think we're running out of time because we're supposed to end at 6:45, but we have a lot of questions. So James, would you agree to come back next week, Thursday at this time? So maybe we can continue our 1031. I even have some questions.
I'm always good to continue conversations on 1031 and happy to help.
So maybe everyone, thank you so much for attending today. Maybe we can continue next Thursday at 6 p.m. and continue on with specific questions about 1031 exchange and how to save taxes and how to strategize your transactions. Thank you so much, James, for being here and share so much knowledge with us.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me on. I think it's 6:45. My phone number is on my link right here. I think somebody who asked for it. I will send it to everybody if I can. And thank you so much again, Paula and Coco.
And yeah, and if you have anybody has any questions and wanting to get hold of James, you can also email me as well. And I'd be happy to. And I'm trying to copy and paste all the questions so that we can continue on the conversation next week. I'm putting my email and my phone number, so you can call me. But either way, we can hopefully see each other next Thursday at 6 p.m. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, you guys.
Yeah, good night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
James.
You're
James'
welcome.
number is 415-640-0794, and Cook's number is 408-829-6053. So we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you. And I'm taking down the question. I'll copy the questions down and then make sure they get addressed next week. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, James. Thank
maybe
you.
later on you can also touch base on the DST. Are you familiar with
I'm more than happy to do that.
Next
Okay.
week. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Stay
you.
tuned.
That'd be awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay, so now we're gonna continue to our second webinar, which is what is the tax-free income, how we can achieve zero tax at retirement. Okay, your guest speaker is Julia. She's a 9F National VP certified financial trainer, and she's also a $1 Million Roundtable member. She has over 25 years in tax-free retirement, education, and estate planning. And she's also the founder and CEO of Global Holistic Wealth. And she has an MS in economics. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Julia Pan.
Thank you, Paula. It was very nice. I also attended the previous Coco and James seminar, which gave me a lot of exciting memories as well as a lot of headache. Think about, being a landlord as well. But there's always a strategy, we can do. And then, on the retirement, how we would like to, to plan for our own retirement, and then which way we can do it, right? So today, I'm very excited talk about Mr. Warren Buffett. As we know, he's a world renowned, and I'm honored to attend his annual shareholder meeting in May in Omaha. And I know it's very difficult to even get a ticket. Because people are really, really respect him for what he has done, especially in the stock market, in the investment world. And you can see he must got a lot of questions about how he becomes so successful. What is the secret to do investment? And then so this is a quote, very simple, right? He said, rule number 1, never lose money. Wow, that is interesting, right? Because I, being an economist, I definitely tried to play stock market, and there's no way I don't lose money. I don't know who can promise or say, hey, I never lose money, right? So that's what Buffett, said, never lose money. And then people kind of curious about, and then what's the number 2, the rule number 2. And then he said, never forget rule number 1. And as I get older, I think I definitely, kind of understand what he's saying much more. And based on my own experience, I think it's also pretty painful lesson for me to learn and then for me to share with you today. If you have been in America for long enough, or if you did play in the stock market, I have been here for 37 years. Yes, I was here during the 2000 and then till 2016. During that period, yes, I experienced, because I came here in the late 80s, so played the stock market, experienced the up, and then boom, at 2000, when the market hit high, and then it start going down, and it just go up a little bit, but went down again. So if you see this chart, you can see is if you have, let's say, if you have a, let's say $100,000 at this point, it literally take you 16 years. If you didn't sell your stock, it will take you 16 years for your money, $100,000 at around 2016 back to where it is. And think about how many 16 years we have in our lives. And, you know, I always teach people, you know, we share this and say, oh, you have $100 and the $100, you say, oh, sorry, the market went down 50%. And then you say, oh, this is so sad. So my money went down, right? And then so tomorrow, the next day, the market go up 50%. A lot of people say, yeah, you know, my money, I got back my money. If you calculate, that's not true. Because for $100, if you go down 50%, it becomes $50, right? If $50 go up 50%, how much you get? You still lose money. Your money only go back $75. You still lose $25. So until the market goes up 100%, so for you to stay where you are, and then especially again is the waiting period. We don't know, you know, market goes up, market goes down. And so the volatility become a huge issue when we plan for people's retirement. And then so, you know, I have been working for the S&P 500 companies for over 16 years. So I know 401k. That was like a lifesaver. Okay, I maximize it. And then my company also match 5%, which is good, right? So we just keep it postponing. But then do you know, again, if your money, or including my money, if my money in the 401k, as you know, 401k, when we put our money in the plan, usually they will use like Fidelity, Merrill Lynch, they will use money management. So the money management, you just knock your head and say, okay, 20% index, 20% whatever, you allocate it, right? And then here you just kind of pray. You hope, you know, you will everything will be fine, but it's not. Think about this, and I am a victimized, is when the money is in there and boom, it went down. And I literally lost half of my 401k because the market. And so, and then of course you wait for it goes up, right? And then, or I just, you know, maybe I cannot wait that long. I just sell for loss, right? Or I retired and I leave it, you know. So with all that, what I'm saying is, you know, I'm glad the Time Magazine, you know, years ago, put out this title called, you know, it is time to retire the 401k, because when the money we put in, there's a couple pitfalls we need to reconsider. Number one is you when you put money in the 401k, you lose liquidity, especially when you are younger. Because remember, if we withdrew the money, you know, before 59 and a half, you get a penalty. And then, of course, you have another, you know, issue you have to, you know, consider is when the money, when you reach 72 years old, you know, the next year you have to, there will be a requirement for you to have a minimum withdrawal. You will have to pay tax regardless. And then the other thing is we think we deferred, but then assuming you're lucky enough, and then your money did grow. So now we are saying you are avoiding paying tax on the seed. But then eventually it will catch you up, because and then you hope the money goes more and more, it become a harvest. But then when the time you want to retire, you pay tax on the entire harvest and on the income tax rate. Of course, people will start argue, hey, you know, Julia, when I'm getting older, you know, my tax rate will be much less. I'm not sure about that. Because, you know, for me, like personally, before I have tax deductible for my mortgage, right? I have tax deductible for my children. And then with all that, but now, you know, I don't have that much tax deductible, right? And then you're still making money. And so your tax rate not necessarily go lower. The other thing is, of course, being an economist, I do look at the historical. And do you know, when a government borrowing so much money, what do you expect? Where they get the money to pay it off or pay a little bit? They have to increase tax besides printing money. They can't keep printing money, right? That will cause inflation. So what that tells you, the potential for the US government increase their tax rate is very high. So for that reason, you also need to reconsider. So basically for the 401k or for the retirement plan, make sure, number one, of course, you want to contribute if the company, match whatever you contribute, the portion, that's a free money, why not, right? And then because right now there is a much better way, which I'm sharing today. So there's a much better way for you to just pay tax once. Pay tax once. I always say we want to be a good citizen, but I just pay tax once. But after that, you have a much better way to put your money. You never lose money, and then you in a way of you never pay tax again. So that's why we always want to look for how I let my money work, harder than me, and that's when we have a good retirement plan, right? And I think I want to bring people some kind of a horrible memory in 2001. That time there is an Enron company, the energy company, big company. So many people work there, and they just, they were just so gung-ho for the company. The company, numbers, the financial numbers look great. And then boom, there's a situation, they actually, there's a fraud, and the company collapsed, just overnight. And then this picture just draw me the memory, a lady, you call her Janice, she worked there for 16 years. And she basically, for 401k, a lot of people also, because they work for the company, they would be able to buy the stocks. And then they are so gung-ho for the stock. And then for her, she did not even diversify. So basically, she had over $700,000 in retirement is gone when she retired. And then that's when they talk about she has to, she cannot afford paying electric bills, sit in the dark, in the cold. And then, they calculated at the time, there's over $1.3 billion loss in their employees' retirement. So that can be a very horrifying story. We talk about people last time, Mr. Steven even talked about he has a friend lost $2 million from his retirement. And just at the age he need to retire, you think about what you do. So once again, I'm talking about why Mr. Warren Buffett talk about never lose money, how crucial it can be. And then especially when you get older, you just cannot afford to deal with this volatility anymore, okay? And so I want to mention this called zero is hero. So that's basically, that's why you never lose money. And I use this example is because there is a vehicle, there is a method for us to use when we put our money in more like an insurance policy. It's not just an insurance, it's also right now it's already become the best, one of the best, I have to say, for the retirement, because the money we put in there is protected. Principal is protected. It uses index as a reference, so we get interest. So the worst interest we get will be zero. That means when market goes down, I just stay where I am. But when market goes up, and then I'm flowing with it. And this one actually is a very conservative, because this one used the popular S&P 500. It does have a floor of a cap at the 12%. But then right now I'm showing next page, there's also good index we can use that doesn't even have a floor, so that our gain is even much better, right? And the good news is because there's an old Internal Revenue Code 7702, right? And that's when a lot of people, including me, we kind of know, if I get a insurance policy, and then of course I need it for my family, for my children, protection, right? But then also I realized, there's this, Internal Revenue Code 7702, which indicate, you just pay tax once, and then you can toggle in your money, but not a lot. They allow you to put under this policy, and then you can use it as a retirement planning. It can be you can use it to accumulate for your retirement, and then that's where you can link to the index, use the index as a reference, but then you will never lose your money. And then but then the good news is during the COVID, the insurance company was successfully lobbied the government, the Congress, and they passed the new Internal Revenue Code 7702 to simplify it. They realize the society is facing the baby boomers. Every day we have an average about, now as the number goes up, 10 to 15,000 people retire as a baby boomer. And then they realize if those people, if they keep losing money or, take the volatile in the market, and then the bank, in a way, during 2021, the interest rate was like 0 point something. And then the housing market, of course, recently it did good job, but before it also went down, especially, during the year 2000. We also see the real estate has a lot of foreclosures. So anyway, and then the new RRC 7702, which did a good job for us, I consider it's good news. The good news is they allow us to use our after-tax money, toggled in a very big portion. Sometimes people say it's like a large size Roth IRA, but then remember that once we toggle in, we never lose money. And then we also have a way of potentially increase our money, double our money for our retirement. And so here is just an example I want to show you. Remember, I talk about because the Internal Revenue Code 7702, it will allow us to put extra money under a life insurance policy. So I'm not just getting a life insurance, which is very good for my legacy. Now I'm going to also talk about for living benefit, but then also I can use it as a part of my retirement planning. And then it's a safe retirement planning because as you can see, the index is just a reference. The index is just a reference. It's not our money put into the market, not like the 401k, not like the qualified plan, but under insurance policy is just a reference. So for example, if you see 2007, right, 2008, if you look at S&P 500, it went down almost 39%. However, if you would you choose the S&P 500 under your policy, you would just get a 0%. So that means your money never goes down. Now we talk about zero is hero, right? However, under S&P 500, it does have a cap. So the average return, which we talk about no tax, that's average 6% or so. That's pretty good already, right? But then of course, there's a much better index right now. And the one I personally used is called a US Pacesetter. So again, if a market went down, it gave you 0. And then if market goes up, not only it does not, it's just like if it's a 10.19% in 2000, I'm just using a 2005, not only they honored it, but no cap, but also they time 2.35 multiplier. So that means I have much quicker way to have my money, increasing and accumulate for me. So if you look at the estimated calculation of 20 years for this index, average about 12 to near 15%. So for this, that's, if people know the rule of a 72, so basically what I mean is if I use a 72 divided by, let's say 6 or 7%, that means my money doubles every 10 years. And then if I use 72 divided by 15, that means my money doubles less than 5 years. So that's what we want to seriously take a look at this new vehicle. And then again, it's like a one size fits all. I'm just so glad. And that's why I'm willing to be the educator to share the good news, because I am personally, my family personally benefit from this. It also, nowadays, people talk about Alzheimer's. It could be a first killer, number one killer in the future. And as you know, when people have a terminal illness, cancer, usually they pass away, in a year or two. But then for Alzheimer's, as you know, they can live, 10 years or even longer. And just the other day, I have a friend and she said, you know what? It's usually the Alzheimer's, the people who take care of Alzheimer patients, they probably pass away before them. It's just the emotional, the physical burden on taking care of those people. But you have to remember, of course, you got to have someone love you so much, or you definitely have to have enough money, right, to pay those people to help you. So so now that's another beautiful thing about right now the you know, we call the fixed index universal life. Not only it is a, you know, it is a you know, give us the death benefit for the children, for our beneficiary, for legacy, tax-free, we pass it. But then also, it also give us called living benefit. Living benefit is a free rider for this company. Basically say, hey, you know, if you're still alive, and then for any reason, you know, for terminal illness, for critical illness, for chronic is similar to long-term care. You know, is 2 out of 6, you know, normal function you could not function, they will pay you. And then for this particular company, they also cover critical injury as well as Alzheimer's. And so right now I get a lot of clients really come to get a policy also for this Alzheimer rider benefit. And then we can see, so there's also extra benefit. They protected from liability from debtors and from reporting. So basically, the cash value you have under the policy by law is stay away from all this liability and debtor. And then we also use this as a vehicle for parents planning for their children's education, because when you apply for FAFSA, which is for student aid on the federal form, particularly on page 9, if you go look at the fine print, it specifically indicate, right, if you have money at the time you apply, if you have money in the bank, in stock, mutual fund, or in rental properties, those would consider, or especially for some of the called the education plan 529, right? And if you basically are saying, hey, I have the money, and then how can you qualify for student aid? However, on the same page, it indicate on the fine print, if the money under the insurance cash value does not consider asset. So that means it gives you a much better chance to have your children get student aid or portion of it. So that's another benefit, right? And so basically, I felt this is more like for us living on this earth, right? We kind of solve a lot of issues we worried about, right? If we die too soon, and then we have a protection. If I live too long, well, good. Remember, we can double our money safely, you know, whatever years, you know, 10 years or in 5 years, and it's safe. We never lose our principal, remember. So it's safe. And it calculates, you know, usually we calculate all the way to 120, and that's nice. I'm not sure if I will live that long, but at least I have a peace of mind, right? I know I have enough funding for me, right? As long as I can live, that gives me a peace of mind. Of course, if anyone get ill, I think this has become natural. Unless someone die, you know, accidentally, but you know, people eventually would die with some kind of a sickness, and so that's why even we become ill, we can use this policy, and then to either heal ourselves, or we can use it. Yeah, people choose say, hey, I just want to travel around the world, right? I want to leave this world, you know, happily. I don't want to go to see doctor, and that's fine too. That could be my choice. So I just want to before I you know at this point I want to give you some examples that people would say, hey Julia, give me some example, and this example always touched my heart about $1 million baby. As we know, Chinese, we have the one of the rich guy in Hong Kong, Li Jiacheng, so his family is always like $1 billion baby. But we just use $1 million baby. You can see how affordable it is. And that's another bitterness. I had people complain about, well, why my parent didn't do this? But I said, no, never too late. You can be the one, right? You can get this for your daughter, for your son, for the newborn. And I also have a lot of grandparents friends. And I would say, hey, get one for your grandchildren, right? What a gift, right? For this particular one, the mother, decided to get $1 million baby after the baby was only 4 weeks old. And so this is $1 million. We calculated, only needed just a little over 3,600 per year. So that's, it's a 300 per month, right? I live in urban California. We go to a restaurant, a couple of us would spend that much money for one meal. So anyway, and as you can see here, if become ill, right? And then, this number could vary a little bit based on the age, but, at the time, claiming for the living benefit. But you can see, it literally can get, 500s, 700s, 800,000 dollars for illness. And then, of course, for the chronic, it's a monthly pay, right? Okay, so I just want to give you an idea. So for this mother, she said, okay, you know what? That's just so minimal. I would just pay, for 18 years. And totally she paid less than 70,000. And then by the time we say, oh, your kids are supposed to go to school now, go to college. And then, of course, remember I just mentioned she might also have a much better chance to get student aid, right? Because the cash value in here doesn't count. She doesn't need a 529 education plan. You don't tie it up to it, right? And then you can just use money here. So, and then not use money here is you can apply for student aid, and then you can have extra. You can withdraw, say, hey, for the dorm, for whatever you want to use it. So, and then that's plans to decide to put, withdraw 17,500 a year. So for 4 years, the kids already took all the money, 70,000 at age 22. All every penny and plus, from what mother had put in. But you see, the policy continues. And so assuming this little girl now become adult, got married, and have her own son, and then we just calculate, say, hey, maybe we do this, when her son, or we say the lady's grandson, go to college, and then we say that's withdraw, 50,000 a year for 4 years to help the education. Boom, $200,000 out. Remember, this is already free money, right? And then so going forward, now this young girl already become a older senior. So now at age 67, he say, hey, you know what? I want to start retiring. And then she can withdraw, basically it's a hypothetical, but average about 100,000 a year. And then just say going on, assuming this person lives longer to 120. Look at this. The mother only put in 69,000. And the daughter already withdrew $6.56 million lifetime. And then, interesting enough, at age 120, if you live over that, the insurance will say, you know what, I'm not playing with you anymore. So, and then by the time, and they will just go ahead, pay you the death benefit. And then look at the death benefit. That's almost 14. That's almost $14 million. And that triggered a lot of issues here, a lot of blessings. And look at this very tiny little seeds the parent put in. And then for this daughter, and then for the next generation, did you see that? The wealth is just passing, and with the miracle of compounding. And then I want to give you another example. And this is a 49 years old female. And she come to me, she said, Julia, I want a lifelong tax-free income, of course. And then, yes, I like the living benefit. I also like to leave some money, for my children and children legacy, right? And then tax-free. I said, sure. So let's do this. And then so for her, the design we had is she had a $1.5 million policy. Of course, if for any reason she got sick, and that's over, from 900 something to 1.2, $1.3 million payout, right? And then for her, she said, she's a pretty good salary, she had very good salary. And she said, what's the maximum? I just, in the very short year, how can I boom, 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 put it in? I said, yeah. So this is by the Internal Revenue, code. She only, for her age, for $1.5 million death benefit, the Internal Revenue allow her per year, put in maximum, 116,669. So this is the number calculated already. So she just put in maximum for 4 years. As you can see, to the 5th year, she even cannot put any more because her ceiling to do the put in under this policy is 579,000, a little over. And then so she's done. She's like, in 5 years, she's done with all the funding. And then look at, so when she retired at age 67, she said, well, let me try. I will just withdraw 100,000 a year. And then boom, 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 she does that. And then you can see at age 120, she put in 579,000. And then she already withdrew 5.4 million. And then she will still have $7.8 million either walk away or pass to her children. And then if anything happens in between, you can see that's also 2 million here, 3 million here, and that's one of that. So I think, we talk about retirement, and I do want to, bring the, you also think about it. This is something we like, a passive income. We want to travel around the world. And then we also want to make sure we have enough money for the medical needs. And then about the passive income, I was a landlord before. So, and then for me, at a certain age, I no longer consider that as passive income. Maybe when I'm getting younger, when I was younger, I like to play in the stock market, even they lost, no problem. I wait for 16 years. But, when you reach a certain age, you have a different priority. And for me, the different priority is I don't play in the stock market anymore. I want to find something which it can zero is hero, and then also give me a very good average 6 to 14, whatever percent return. But then also for me is I also want to passive. I don't need to worry about it. And then so worry about the tenants or worry about, the repair, maintenance, of course, we have to go through the expert about 1031 exchange, it's just a lot of hassle for me. Maybe that's just personally. So I think it's an alternative, we just, you can try, you diversify, right? You can diversify, continue be your landlord, but don't just be a landlord, right? Just always have yourself. It's just, we say, don't put the egg in the one basket, right? It's just like the lady Janice, the farmers, right? Put everything in Enron, and Enron is gone, and then, her retirement money is gone. So for that reason, I think for me, I've been in this industry, 20 some years, 25 years, 26 now, so I think in a way, it's more like a personal, experience. So I hope I can use my personal experience and then choose to be a financial educator, because I felt this is something I want to share the good news to people. Because we do want to have a peace of mind. We want to live a life, have a passive income, and then we just pay tax once. Hopefully, we don't need to pay tax again. And then with the living benefit, where when we need those treatment, and then I can be able to hire people even to help me, and then getting old with the dignity. Okay, so this is my contact information. Feel free to give me a call, or this is my Zoom, my WeChat. For those who has WeChat, you can scan my code. So I am looking forward to talking to you, and then hopefully, I can see one family, one person, get better and better each time financially. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julia, for the great presentation. And this makes us understand how we can prepare and how we can pass on our family wealth to generations. I have seen a question here. It's in Chinese. Just do you have short-term and flexible 7702 product to recommend? Basically, it's the money he might need this money, but just want to put in the 7702 to avoid holding too much cash or assets. 就是有没有短期的灵活的7702产品来推荐？
Yes.
这笔钱可能会需要用，但是呢又不想在手里放太多的现金，就暂时能放在地方。
Yeah, so just feel free if you can this is my contact information. You can scan the code since you written in Chinese. You can scan my my WeChat code or go ahead, give me a call 949-933-9698. I would love to talk to you. Thank you.
Just remember, if there's a problem, there's always a solution. So if there's a need, there's always a solution. It just you have to have the knowledge to know that.
Yes, absolutely. You know, if we say Chinese, 认知啊，认知决定你的，真实决定你的生活。Yeah, so knowledge is very powerful.
好的 ，Thank you。阿兰，你可以联系一下 Julia 老师，然后让他给你提供一些方式和方法，你来去学习和参考。好 ，So next I'm gonna do announcement for the upcoming class. So every class from here, and you can get from my9fi.com. And just use your phone number, and then you can get in, and it's all free, and it's very easy. Just click on air, and then for 1 key you get on the webinars. So on Friday, and we have investment. If you are interested in investment in stock, and then you can come listen to Friday's 5 o'clock webinar. And on Saturday, we are starting our retirement paradise, discovering ideal retirement destination. So the first stop will be Florida, Orlando. And this class will be very interesting. And we're going to show off all the culture and also the cost of living. And so a lot of good inside information from Bo Zhang. So that's coming Saturday at 6 p.m. And the next Tuesday at 6 o'clock is our CPA. So the CPA will answer all your questions about tax, how to file return. So that's at 6 o'clock. And at 6:45, it's how, all in Chinese, we all call it 富不过三代, which means you basically cannot pass on your family wealth like 3 generations or beyond. But there is a way where you can really pass on your family legacy more than generations, 3 generations. It can even be generations and generations. So it's a legacy that you can leave to your family. And now in Houston this coming Saturday, so from 10 to 3 o'clock, we're gonna have an offline offline seminars. So this is gonna be in Houston, and anyone who's in Houston are welcome to attend. And you can also register online at my9fi.com. Okay. So all the information is at my9fi.com. So we love technologies. When I was taking my MBA classes, I studied MBA, but with concentration in telecommunications. So at that time, I even wrote a thesis. Imagine one day, and we don't have to work from 9 to 5, and we can have this device. At that time, I called this device called CPS, PCS, personal communication devices or service system. And then with this device, and it has the phone, fax, computer, like everything in one, and you can freely work anywhere you want. And nowadays, and it's all a reality, especially with the AI. So embrace the power and embrace the technology and embrace 9 Fortune Smart Link technology and make your life much, much easier. Thank you, and I will see you next class. And thanks so much for our guest speakers. And thanks you all for your participation.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.